It's been a whirlwind week after the November 8th election. As we're taping this, some national races still haven't been called, but here in Texas, we have the full list of Election Day winners and losers. Hey there, I'm digital anchor Brandy Smith. If you're looking for a race-by-race breakdown, visit khou.com/elections or just text the word results to 713-526-1111. In this KHOU 11 Plus special, we'll start with the issues impacting the entire state and then highlight some of the big issues for different regions in Texas. And hey, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Democrats thought 2022 might be the year they turned Texas blue, but Governor Abbott easily won re-election, topping opponent Beto O'Rourke by 11 points. More on this race in a minute. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick will hold on to his job for another 4 years. Chris Sadeghi got a chance to speak with him in Houston after the win.
Here in Houston, it was smooth sailing for Dan Patrick and his campaign, never seriously threatened throughout the night from Democrat Mike Collier. Even though the 2018 race between these two was a tight one, this time Patrick and his supporters celebrated throughout the night, their third time to be elected to the lieutenant governor's office, and with that, more power over the Texas legislature. I asked him what was different about this campaign and this election compared to those previous, and he said that each time it becomes more obvious that voters are rejecting Democrats and their efforts to turn Texas into California with their ideology. Looking forward to next year's legislative session, I asked him about the priorities, and he named two. He said, again, getting lawmakers to find common ground and solutions for the power grid, and then also mentioned criminal justice reform, specifically judges who let violent criminals out of jail.
Renewables are great, but we have to have enough dispatchable power that we can always count on, so we don't have to worry about the wind blowing or if the sun's not out. And then I'm going to add a sentence, of a 10-year mandatory sentence to any criminal who uses any person who uses a gun in a crime, stacked on top of whatever sentence they have for whatever crime they committed. We got to get the criminals off the street.
And the supporters here at Patrick's party were all watching Governor Greg Abbott's victory speech in McAllen. As soon as it ended, Patrick went on stage, claimed victory of his own. He will now serve another 4 years as lieutenant governor, and that means presiding over the Texas Senate. In Houston, I'm Chris Sadeghi. Now back to you.
Maybe the race that was the most uncertain for Republicans was Attorney General, but incumbent Ken Paxton did hold on to his job. Matt Howerton broke down how that race played out.
Attorney General Ken Paxton will serve a third term as Texas's top lawyer, beating Rochelle Garza, the Democratic challenger, by double digits. And a lot of political experts, they expected this to be a tighter race. And that's mainly because Paxton's swimming in deeper, more controversial waters than other candidates. He spoke at a rally preceding the January 6th Capitol riot, was sued by the state bar for discipline after unsuccessfully challenging the election results, the presidential election results of 2020. And in late 2020, several of his staff blew the whistle on him, accusing he used his office to help a political donor. The FBI looking into that. Paxton has refuted all of those allegations. He won in 2018 while being indicted for securities fraud. That trial hasn't happened just yet. Paxton weathering controversy again, this time around this election, and he addressed that with his supporters, saying that despite all of the negative media, all of the negative press surrounding him, the voices of Texans spoke louder.
We've been under attack from the media, from the left, even from the establishment. And what's so amazing to me, and I truly believe it's the people of Texas understand what's right and wrong.
Democratic challenger Rochelle Garza in Houston with her reaction.
So I feel very proud, and I feel like I've done my parents proud, and I also feel like I've done my beloved Rio Grande Valley proud.
Again, just to underscore, a lot of political experts thought this would be a tighter race due to all the political baggage that Paxton was carrying. However, that didn't seem to matter to voters this year. In Plano, I'm Matt Howerton.
Other races of note, voters elected the first Muslim immigrants to the State House. In Fort Bend County, Dr. Suleiman Lalani of Sugar Land will represent House District 76. And in Tarrant County, Pakistani-American Salman Bohani was elected in House District 92. 3 openly gay black candidates won their elections. Yolanda Jones from here in Houston, Christian Manuel Hayes from Beaumont, and Denton Jones from Dallas will all be heading to Austin. These races and more are included in a new episode of Yolitics that dropped the morning after election night. Jason Whiteley and Jason Wheeler discuss where Democrats go after another brutal election, what happens to Beto O'Rourke. Oh, and we go there, officially diving into the 2024 presidential talk. Download it wherever you get your podcasts. Now back to the governor's race. Marcelino Benito spent the day with the Abbott campaign to find out how the governor pulled off the huge win.
All of you propelled me to what has now become a resounding victory.
After a night of fireworks along the border.
God bless our great state of Texas.
This morning, the Abbott campaign taking a victory lap of sorts, breaking down how they fended off a challenge by Beto O'Rourke.
In 120 counties, Governor Abbott got the most votes of any candidate for governor in the history of the state.
Most surprising, Abbott won Uvalde County, home to the state's worst school shooting ever, by nearly 22%. He overperformed his 2018 numbers in every Texas media market.
But in Texas, we are fighting back.
The campaign blasting the airwaves with $38 million of TV ads since September 1st. The governor also making significant gains in South Texas.
And we showed America that South Texas is now electing Republicans.
The Abbott campaign says their early analysis shows they won at least 40% of Hispanic voters, perhaps even more when the counting wraps up.
That is, planting those seeds to continue to. This isn't just a one and done thing.
60% of Texas voters said inflation, immigration, and economic growth were their top priorities, all issues voters preferred Abbott over Beto on.
Texans sent a very resounding message.
One day after securing a third term by double digits, questions swirling if Abbott could make a run for the White House in 2 years.
Just because you're very popular in your home state and you win handily has zero translation to presidential politics. So there's nothing that happened last night that would say, oh, he can't run for president, or, oh, he should run for president.
Now, Abbott strategists did not explicitly rule out a run for president in 2024, but say the governor is laser focused on his third term and the upcoming legislative session. We're reporting from McAllen. I'm Marcelino Benito, KHOU 11 News.
O'Rourke has fallen short twice running for statewide office in Texas. The Democrat galvanized voters, but couldn't topple the red wall that is rural Texas. So what's next for O'Rourke? Gerald Harris shared what we know.
The next steps for Beto O'Rourke after losing to Greg Abbott is unclear.
I don't know what my role or yours will be going forward, but I'm in this fight for life. I'm in this with you.
But O'Rourke, who also lost a 2018 Senate bid, 2020 Democratic presidential bid, signaled he would stay involved in some capacity.
I know he's going to stay involved. I know he's going to bring resources to Texas. I know his mission is Texas, his heart is Texas, and we look forward with him staying involved.
Beto O'Rourke blames the, quote, odds stacked against him, including voter suppression for his loss.
The advantages that they had in money, in people, in the powers of incumbency and the levers that they could pull, in the way that voter registration and just being able to cast a ballot in Texas is a lot harder than it has to be, and a lot harder for people who might otherwise be voting for us.
However, just as O'Rourke did for down-ballot Democrats in 2018, O'Rourke is poised to do the same thing for Democrats in those areas in 2022.
And it's true, him being on the ballot got a lot of our folks out, got our base out.
And that base contributed to holding off a Republican charge to take back county government in Harris County. But ultimately, Democrats, including Beto O'Rourke, will need a new recipe to topple the Republican stronghold that is Texas.
There's more Republicans in Texas than there is Democrats, and that's just the truth. We have to be honest about that. We've got to continually register voters. We've got to continually energize our base.
Gerald Harris, KHOU 11 News.
Governor Abbott's long-held support in Uvalde County was apparent election night after he received more than half of the votes there. Now families of Robb Elementary victims are looking ahead to the future. Zach Briggs explained.
I caught up with Manuel and Jesse Rizzo, uncles of Jacqueline Jackie Cazadis. While they're disappointed with last night's election results, they are not backing down from continuing to fight for change and transparency. Governor Greg Abbott has maintained strong voter support in Uvalde County in past elections. This time around, Abbott received 60% of the vote over Democrat challenger Beto O'Rourke. It's been less than 6 months since the Robb Elementary shooting, where 19 children and 2 teachers were killed. More than 300 law enforcement officers waited 77 minutes before breaching the classroom to kill the gunman. The Rizzus plan on making it one of their missions in the coming year to emphasize the importance of voting, noting how they're aware of many people who did not go to the polls. They're also looking forward to working with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle when it comes to considering legislation dealing with gun laws, the most prominent proposal to raise the age to buy assault-style rifles from 18 to 21.
And if you're told no by any leader, politician, director, you will keep going and fighting for it.
Manuel Rizzo does believe that Greg Abbott and the Department of Public Safety failed the Uvalde community, but he doesn't believe it is essential for Texas DPS Director Steve McCraw to step down. He thinks it is important for everyone to work together to do what is necessary, regardless of political affiliation, to prevent future tragedies from happening. In Uvalde, Zach Briggs, KENS 5.
The election was the GOP's 14th consecutive sweep of statewide offices. William Joy reported the results are yet another sign that Democrats face an uphill battle to be competitive at the top of the ticket here in Texas.
The national political narrative is Democrats overperforming and stopping a predicted red wave, but in Texas, neither party is truly happy.
Obviously, we would love better results in the statewide elections.
Jamar Brown with the Texas Democrats says despite double-digit losses in the top races, they won South Texas congressional races and see progress in urban and suburban areas, with Abbott's vote percentage declining in Dallas, Tarrant, Collin, and Denton counties compared to 2018.
Both sides need an energized electorate, particularly Democrats. They didn't have it this time.
Democrats haven't won a statewide office in 28 years. SMU professor Cal Gilson says the results show the impact of partisanship. The governor, lieutenant governor, and AG races were all identical margins, despite Ken Paxton facing a whistleblower lawsuit and federal indictment.
I did think that one might be a little bit closer than the others, but it turned out that didn't matter at all.
Jim Riddlesberger at TCU says the results weren't surprising. Turnout was low. Republicans won.
While the Democrats cannot take any heart from what happened yesterday, I think they can, in fact, take the message that, golly, we're getting closer.
Texas GOP Chairman Matt Rinaldi tweeted, "Though we outperformed our internal polls statewide, a smaller red shift than we'd hoped in the suburbs and valley."
For us, it's been important to make sure that we run up the numbers in urban areas, but also now begin to build those incremental gains in suburban areas.
Democrats dropped one of their 65 Texas House seats and one of 13 state Senate seats, but note suburb successes like Mihaela Plisa, the first Democrat state rep from Collin County in decades, despite being outraised 4-1.
Nobody expected very much change in Texas at all, and that's exactly the way it turned out.
Election day is over, and lawmakers head to Austin in 2 months. In Dallas, I'm William Joy.
Beyond candidates on the ballot, 5 Texas cities voted to decriminalize having small amounts of marijuana. 82% of voters in San Marcos and 75% in Elgin voted for their respective propositions. Advocates say these approvals mean people will no longer have their lives ruined for low-level marijuana arrests. And they've been working on getting this approved for a long time. Ford Sanders broke down what this means for those cities.
All right, thank you so much. Y'all have a good day. San Marcos voters will have the opportunity to vote.
What does this mean for the community? I mean, that means that overwhelmingly the people here want to see that. You know, how big of a deal is that for these communities?
It was so rewarding, not only to us, but to the people of San Marcos, because it gives them an opportunity to see that grassroots democracy is possible. Like, we can make change in our community.
Voters in San Marcos and Elgin both signing off on Prop A.
Well, Proposition A is a ballot initiative to decriminalize misdemeanor amounts of marijuana possession.
Julie Oliver is the executive director for Ground Game Texas, which worked to get these props on the ballot in 5 Texas cities.
This is not legalization, it's decriminalization. No citations, no arrests for the misdemeanor possession.
In San Marcos, it also stops police from issuing citations for Class A and B possessions of marijuana, stops them from using smell as a probable cause for searches, and prohibits using city funds or personnel to test THC levels.
One of the things it means for taxpayers is that they're saving some scarce public resources.
Before the election, San Marcos police officials worried about the impacts Prop A might have on drug use as a whole.
How shall I say, one way or the other,
San Marcos is going to need some prayer. If that comes to fruition, that's coming up.
But advocates with Mano Amiga, which also helped put this measure on the ballot, say voters were ready for this.
We want to change from having a system of deprivation and violence to one that's rehabilitative and actually responds to the needs of our community.
Denton also voted to decriminalize marijuana. Tiffany Liu looked at how that's expected to impact Denton.
It's a proposition that drew Dentonites to the polls. Prop B pushed to decriminalize misdemeanor possession of marijuana in the city, and it overwhelmingly passed.
I voted for Prop B.
32,000 voters for, 13,000 against.
I would have voted no.
Once the city council canvasses the election on November 18th, it becomes an ordinance. It's something Nick Stevens and his team at Decriminalize Denton are humbled to see.
Republicans and Democrats and independents collectively in Denton came together over a common sense issue and passed the decriminalization of marijuana.
They gathered 3,000 signatures and contacted 70,000 residents ahead of the election.
This proposition received more votes than any mayor or council member ever in Denton history.
Stevens says this means no more citations or arrests for less than 4 ounces of marijuana. And he says police will not be able to stop and frisk simply from the smell. For some, it is concerning.
If you're high enough or doing any kind of drug, then I think you could set yourself up for a problem. Either hurting someone else, crashing a car, hurting a business.
Denton Police Chief Doug Shoemaker says marijuana possession alone has not and will not be a priority. In a statement, he writes, "With that said, officers must maintain discretion to be able to keep our community safe from harm. When marijuana possession pairs with other crimes that affect public safety, including offenses such as driving while intoxicated or firearms violations, such acts cannot and will not be ignored." The city ordinance will not apply to the University of North Texas or Texas Women's University Police Departments. Denton County Sheriff's Office and Texas DPS will not be impacted either. This means even within city limits, those departments can still make low-level marijuana arrests. In Denton, I'm Tiffany Liu.
We heard from a lot of you about issues at the polls, especially in Harris County. That led to a judge ordering polls to stay open for an hour and a legal fight that's only just getting started. If you want an update on that, go to khou.com/politics. But KHOU 11 spoke to frustrated voters who tried to cast their ballot on election night and weren't able to do so. Tiffany Craig caught up with them the next day.
A trip back to the polling place.
When I drove up right now, it was like deja vu,
What happened here election night still isn't sitting well with Melanie Driver.
From here to just right there, I'm ready to go in there and do my thing. And just like that, in a heartbeat, sorry, y'all gonna have to leave.
Melanie and some others got in on that extra hour to vote in Harris County, not knowing a court battle was brewing.
We were about to go and get and vote. The Supreme Court, they got some message over the phone or some systems saying the Supreme Court had revoked it and saying that no more. That we couldn't vote. So 11 of us that were waiting in there to vote that had filled out affidavit didn't get a chance to vote.
What's your reaction to that?
That's not fair. That's not fair at all because, I'm a U.S. citizen and I have the right to vote.
Oscar Morales and Melanie were high school classmates, raised on the East Side. Both learned early on that showing up matters.
I grew up in this community, and me being Hispanic, we get a lot of, they don't vote, can't get their votes, and it's the truth. So I try to make my voice count.
Which is why Melanie isn't planning to fight what happened. Instead, she feels empowered.
To figure out how can we prevent this? What do we need to do? What do we need to sign? Or we can't just let this slip through the cracks. It'll continue to happen.
So for you, it means getting more involved.
Exactly.
That's what this taught you, to get more involved.
To get more involved and now really raise my voice because my voice does matter.
Social media was one of the ways voters let us know they were running into problems. I talked to a veteran whose TikTok videos went viral on Election Day.
I got here 5 a.m.
Before she even starts to explain her morning, you can see the emotion in Loren Johnson's eyes, and you can hear the frustration in her voice.
I have watched so many cars pull up and drive away.
Johnson says when the polling location at Sunnyside Multi-Service Center was supposed to open, poll workers informed those in line the machines weren't working.
The machines are broken? About 7:30, 7:40, they finally came out with a list of closer locations and provided us with that list to go to those locations. And people started to filter out at that time.
She decided to wait in her car, where her sister encouraged her to post that first TikTok video.
This is not right, y'all. This is not right. There were old people standing in line, and this isn't right. We gotta do better. People should be able to vote. And to watch those in the community that got up early and moved and grooved and shuffled there, having to difficultly shuffle back, not knowing if they could make it back. I was in a state of disbelief, and I couldn't help but just cry.
You decided to go to another location, and what was your experience there?
Their machines had gone down. We need to do better. I guess we do better by voting, right? And I guess that's the point.
Fed up, she went back to her original polling place and shared her final update.
It's 9:25. I'm going to go vote. Sunnyside Multi-Service Center, machines are up.
Johnson told me the right to vote is something she feels passionately about and was one of the factors that led her to serve in the military for 20 years.
I'm never one to just, do a whole bunch of rah, but being connected to things that we serve for is really near and dear to my heart.
It unlocked something today in a lot of people.
Well, I hope it made them, it reminded them to go back and vote or I'm going to go vote because that wasn't right. So hopefully people voted.
Many of you reached out to us about getting turned away at the polls because they ran out of paper ballots. You asked us, what in the world happened? The Harris County Republican Party says 21 of its election judges reported ballot shortages on Election Day. KHOU 11 spoke with 3 of them who told us they called the election headquarters sometimes multiple times with ample notice that supplies were running low. But they say they waited and waited and in many cases had to shut down until more paper arrived.
I've been doing this for years. I've never heard of anything so basic as running out of ballots, not in the late evening, but in the early afternoon. That's complete incompetence.
I have to take that to heart and determine exactly what was that, what caused that, and then ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Elections Administrator Clifford Tatum said Harris County received calls about low paper supplies as early as 7:30 the morning of Election Day, and he's pledged to get to the bottom of that. Again, this is very much a developing story. We have the latest at khou.com/politics. While there were plenty of instances of verified voting issues, misinformation campaigns were also hard at work. Ariane Detil from our National Verify team got to the bottom of a claim that Republican voters were turned away at the polls.
On Election Day, this video was posted to Twitter claiming to show a Republican voter being turned away from the polling place. The video appears to show an exchange between the apparent voter and a poll worker.
With this election, you can vote in any precinct.
No, you said the Republican side is not what?
I don't have staff, so we are closed right now.
So for the Democrat, I can vote Democrat?
You can vote Democrat.
But not Republican.
Not Republican, I'm sorry.
So let's verify. Does this video show a voter being turned away from the polls during Tuesday's midterm election? Our sources are Leah Shaw, spokesperson for the Harris County Election Administrator's Office, and InVid, a video forensics tool. Using InVid, Verify found earlier postings of this video dating back to March 1st, the first day of the 2022 primary elections in Texas. So we can verify, no, this video does not show a voter getting denied during Tuesday's midterms. We can also prove that it isn't evidence of election fraud. Let me show you. For this primary, it was the first time that each political party had to staff their own machines and operations. In Harris County, Texas, there were reports of widespread staffing shortages at polling places. So Verify called Leah Shaw. Shaw confirmed that it was taken at the Hardy Senior Center polling location in Houston. She told Verify that the Democrat side of the election was staffed, but the Republican side wasn't. So if somebody was hoping to vote Republican, they could not vote at that location because the side was closed. They could, however, still vote at other open Republican locations. She called the video misleading and told Verify this is not evidence of any kind of voter fraud. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Detil.
If you want our Verify team to look into something, reaching out is easy. Just email verify@khou.com. All right, you should be all caught up on the results of the November 8th election in Texas. But any news stories, any new headlines, yep, you guessed it, we will share them on khou.com/politics. And we'll do this all again in a couple years. The presidential election is in November 2024.